Presentation made by Sandeep, Tanisha, and Sarah. May the force of water be with you.
Managing water resources is tricky as water takes different forms and has no boundaries. However, laws and regulations need to be in place to protect this precious resource. Let's take a closer look at Canada and see what policies are in effect to conserve water resources. Clean Water Act. This act manages water resources of Canada, including research, planning, and the implementation of programs relating to the conservation, development, and utilization of water resources. The Clean Water Act will require local communities to look at the existing and potential threats to their water and set out and implement the actions necessary to reduce or eliminate significant threats. Empower communities to act to prevent threats from becoming significant. Require public participation on every local source protection plan. Require that all plans and actions are based on sound science. Now, let's look at how countries work together to solve transboundary water issues. The International Boundary Waters Treaty Act is the treaty between the United States and Canada providing mechanisms for resolving any dispute over any waters bordering the two countries. Cooperation and coordination from both countries is expected to manage shared waterways and to investigate environmental issues of mutual interest along the border. China. as one of the fastest developing countries in the world, is putting in huge efforts to protect their water resources. Water 10 Plan China sets out 10 general measures for the different government departments. In general, the plan covers the following 4 broad actions. Pollution discharge control. Promote the economy, industry, and environment. Encourage technological advancements. Strengthen management and ensure water resource safety. And clarify responsibilities and encourage public participation. The plan also covers pollution control, water efficiency improvement in agriculture, municipal water use, coastal water management, and overall ecological environment protection. It uses a combination of water efficiency targets and market mechanisms such as water tariff reform, revised water fees, credit financing, and environment performance and eco-compensation. As you can see, policies on water resources are not only needed to protect water resources in individual country, but also is vital to protect water resources to achieve global sustainable development. Now let's look at a local example and assess its environmental, social, and economic implications.
Welcome to another episode of MES Squad News. As some of you might know, there's a controversy behind Nestle's water-taking permit in Aberfoyle, which was up for renewal and has been getting a lot of media attention. You guys have a rare opportunity to hear the arguments of both sides, so you can make a decision for yourself. Presenting a member from Wellington Waters, which is an environmental group that wants Nestle to phase out all water extraction. We have Selena Gomez. On the other side, we have an executive member from Nestle Waters, Tanisha Minaj. Get ready for the most epic rap battle you will ever witness.
Nestle Water wants to renew its permit to take out water from Aberfoyle. This is going to spoil our water supply. Maybe this topic is so fly. To pay $750 for low meters. And what about our environmental risk? You may be thinking, well, that's just $3,000. The citizen is, after these initial fees, they're only charged $3.71 per million liters. Does that even make any sense? They are getting high criticism because they already have 2 other wells, you see. Is your vision distracted from the realities of what the consequences can be? Check out the confusing series that even Premier Captain Wayne has sent the permit issue to our environment minister. Wake up, guys, know the facts and let them register.
Well, as you may or may not know, our mayor Cam Luther said Nestle's permit to take water from Aberfoyle's well will have zero effect on Guam's water supply. She's a mayor after all. Do you really think that she'll lie? And if that's not enough, let me tell you this. This summer, when it was hot and dry, Nestle decided to comply and cut back water withdrawals by 20%. And you still don't believe we're ethical and decent? We have scientists who do real science to study our water resources. So friends, let's just shake hands on this. Let's join forces and spread the kingdom of plastic water bottles. I mean, even Aristotle would have been on our side. Let's not make a scene. Don't let media throttle Nestle's image as being obscene. And just believe me when I say this, but our company is clean and green.
Following program is brought to you by Old Spice, the proud sponsor of MES Squad News.
Since we've been having a lot of debates between environmental groups and Nestle the corporation, we decided to get an expert opinion on what the whole situation actually looks like. We're bringing to you an exclusive report from a professor at the University of Guelph, Dr. Scott Ketchison, who is a hydrologist and a wetland specialist. Let's go and see what he has to say about this whole issue. Right. So thank you for talking to us about Nestle today.
Yep, you're welcome.
So, from a hydrological perspective, what are some issues you see with the Nestle water plant extracting water from the Everfoyle well?
Yeah, I think obviously it's an issue that's been getting some fair bit of media attention, and from a hydrological perspective, groundwater resources need to be used in a sustainable way. And so, as you're probably aware, Guelph relies upon groundwater for their municipal water supply. And in fact, it's one of the largest municipalities in Canada, at least, that relies almost exclusively upon groundwater. And so I think that the fact that Nestle is also extracting water means that there are competing sources extracting water from this groundwater reservoir. And I think that perhaps the rate at which Nestle is extracting water, and I'm not sure, but I know it's in the millions to perhaps tens of millions of liters of water per day. Hopefully it's being done at a sustainable rate.
Right, so you're not sure if this is a sustainable extraction or not?
Yeah, I'm not really sure, but I know that you can determine a sustainable level of groundwater extraction through groundwater management practices. So basically you can look at the water budget of a catchment, and as long as the extraction is occurring at a rate that doesn't exceed the rate of recharge of the groundwater aquifer, then you should be able to have a sustainable groundwater extraction rate. I think sometimes they refer to this as a safe yield from a specific aquifer, and although surface water needs to be considered as well.
And what policies do you think should be developed to protect our local water supplies? And do you think it's possible to find a balance between what the citizens want and what the corporation wants?
Yeah, that's a great question. And coming from the Waterloo region, I know that the region has developed source water protection plans. And so I think that's a good idea to try to protect the areas where groundwater recharge is occurring. So that can be limited to a fairly small proportion of the total watershed. And these concentrated groundwater recharge zones are being protected in the region of Waterloo. I'm not exactly sure what's happening in Guelph, but I hope something similar. And so they're being protected with respect to both the amount of development that's allowed to occur in terms of limiting impermeable surfaces so that the amount of recharge can be maximized, but also in terms of managing pollutants in these sensitive areas, such as managing the way that road salt is applied, for example. So I think that's a good idea, is to try to protect the source of the groundwater supply. Now when it comes to the balance between the industry, what the industry wants and what the municipality needs, I think that the municipality should take total precedence over the industrial water extraction hopes. And of course, I think that as long as it can be done sustainably, that it's okay for some groundwater supplies to be extracted for bottling. However, I think that this should be more closely regulated in order to ensure that it's done sustainably. And I also think that the company, in particular Nestle, should have to pay a fair price in order to do that. So I think it's important that the municipality takes precedence and priority, and then that any sort of commercial extraction is done in a responsible manner.
And do you think that the media is overhyping the whole Nestle issue, or do you think it's getting the appropriate attention that it should be getting?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think that anytime something like this is happening in your own backyard, people really want to make sure it's done in a responsible manner. And so I don't think it's being overhyped in the media. In fact, I'm happy that it's getting so much media attention, because I believe that this will help to ensure that from an environmental perspective, things are done and permitted in a responsible manner.
So, in your opinion, what is the major difference between water-related issues that the whole world is facing versus water-related issues that Canada is facing?
Yikes, that's a big question. I think from a global perspective, obviously climate extremes are becoming more frequent, and so in dry areas, droughts are becoming more severe and occurring more frequently. And at the same time, in other parts of the world, there's more extreme wet conditions that are causing flooding and landslides. So from a global perspective, these extreme weather events are going to create a real challenge where the dry becomes a little drier and the wet becomes wetter just with these intense events. From a Canadian perspective, I think that, although we have a lot of freshwater supplies, we still have a lot of drinking water cleanliness and drinking water quality issues, especially with respect to some of the horrible conditions that are currently in First Nations communities. I know that there are a number of communities that don't have access to clean drinking water within Canada, and I think that some effort should be made to change that. Same thing with water distribution and climate extremes. I know it was maybe only a year or two ago where really wet conditions during the autumn harvest in the prairies created havoc because the farmers weren't able to get their equipment out onto the fields to harvest their crops. And so we're still faced with similar challenges on a global scale just within our own country as well.
Thank you.
There you have it, folks. All the information from the Nestle issue. As Dr. Ketchison said, we should use science to really study the aquifers. We need to consider the water budget equation and recharge rates of the underlying material to determine the safe amounts of water that can be drawn. These elements should also be incorporated in the Ontario Water Resources Act, because in Nestle's case, the permit expired on July 31st this year, but the act allowed them to continue drawing water while they're looking at the renewal. Signing off from MES Squat News. Stay green.
I was so good before, I didn't know what's happening. Okay, no one's gonna laugh now, okay? I'm gonna turn the light off, I'm gonna turn it on. We're gonna turn it back on, no one's laughing. So laugh all you want to right now. You're not allowed to laugh. Okay. 1, 2, 3. No more laughing.
A wing, a whack, a wing, a whack, a wing.